finally back.
Katie, I'm just thinking, oh man, it's goosebumps, isn't it?
Well, I guess the measure of the best teams is that they know how to win ugly.
History is made to be broken, and that's the beautiful thing about sport.
Argentina win for the first time in New Zealand.
Have they found the gladiator within at last to end this horrific run?
A team had to handle expectation and pressure. They found a way, and Ireland are the Grand Slam champions.
Wins it for New Zealand! Oh my goodness!
Black King Hall goes in. What a finish to this match it is. They had to dig deep. That's exactly what they did.
Welcome to international rugby.
Oh, international rugby is banging on the door right now. Tēnā koutou katoa, good evening and welcome into the breakdown. 1 week out from our first test and two big names haven't travelled to Argentina. Will Jordan and Lester Whainganuku for the All Blacks. We'll talk about that. We have Michael Checker joining us on the programme. Alana Bremner out of the Black Ferns, and we talk about this new global competition. Jeff Wilson, Carl Tinana and Angus Ta'avao. Great to have you all on the programme. You fizzed for Test rugby to start. This is it, isn't it? This is the start as we head into the Rugby World Cup.
Oh, you can just smell it. You can just smell it. Now we start getting into the big time, you know, and there's a big tournament coming a lot closer. So we've been waiting for this for a while, right, Angus, just to get into the mixer.
I'm excited to know that there's going to be some players that get the first chance to wear a jersey. You know, it brings, tingles up my spine the first time I played in Argentina, and hopefully we see some lads get that feeling next week.
I thought I needed a weekend off. I didn't need a weekend off. I watched the Black Ferns on Thursday night, which was awesome, the way they played. And I thought, when's the next game? When am I watching the next game? Because all this discussion, we've debated this All Black team for months. I want to see it play. I mean, who's going to play? I can't wait.
We are going to talk about that deeply on the show. Angus, give us a wee injury update. How far away are you now?
Hey, hopefully, very, very soon. I'm looking to play a little bit of club for Eden next week.
Awesome.
So all going well, all going to plan. Shout out to my mate Quinn Tupaia, who's been my little return to play buddy. Me and him have been, and he's not far away as well. So shout out to you, my mate.
Who's the poor guys that Eden have got next week?
Oh, well, Eden, to be fair, Eden.
Oh, mate, they can't wait. They can't wait. They're coming for you. When you're an All Black and you start playing club rugby, they're after you. That's what's happening.
That is awesome news, though. That is awesome news. It's the news that we've all been waiting for. So go well in a week's time. Well, this new global rugby competition is well and truly on the cards. In fact, it has been confirmed the best of the South and the best of the North are finally going to combine. And this is what the proposal looks like. It'll start in 2026. Of course, you'll have all 6 teams from the 6 nations. You'll have the 4 Southern Hemisphere teams that currently compete in the Rugby Championship, plus 2 other invitational sides. It sounds like those will be Japan and Fiji right now. From 2030 onwards, there'll be a promotion relegation system into the next tier that World Rugby is creating, and this will happen every 2 years. So not in Rugby World Cup years and not when the British and Irish Lions are touring. And it'll happen in the July and November window. Katie, people have been wanting this for a long time. What do you think?
I love it. You know, firstly, we get some meaningful tests in that July test window. We don't get a B, Ireland or England coming down, you know, so there's something on the line. And as always, when you're in the Southern Hemisphere, there's always conjecture and conversation, who's the best? You know, is it the All Blacks, is it the South Africans, is it the English, is it the French, you know? So now we actually get a competition to figure that out every second year, you know, so I reckon it's cool.
How will the All Blacks be reacting to this news, Gus? I mean, what did you think when you heard it?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's exciting. You go against the best players, but what I'm more excited about is the second tier nations. You know, there's that competition where you can get promotion, relegation. You talk about Fiji possibly being that 16, but look what Samoa, Tonga are doing with some of these ex-All Blacks, ex-Australian players that are coming back. They get a chance for those nations to be playing the All Blacks, playing the Frances, playing the England teams. I mean, what's not to love about it?
One of the challenges is the fact that we're losing touring. And last year, Ireland coming to New Zealand when it wasn't just a one-off game. You had multiple games against one nation. Where I look at this, I'm interested to see it plays out, and also how it affects the rankings of the teams as you get closer to Rugby World Cups, and how that might affect the seedings going into those Rugby World Cups. And hopefully it helps avoid possibly what we've got in terms of what the top 4 teams being on one side of the draw at this year's Rugby World Cup. But I think this was always on the cards. And ultimately, someone's going to pay a huge amount of money for this competition.
$10 billion is
And
the number thrown out there right now.
So I'm hoping that's not just these teams that benefit. This is all of the other sides around the world benefit from this. The investment into the game is not just confined to these teams, it's to everybody else as well.
And you think the flow-on effect of that is like when you get like the Fijis, the Samoas, the Tongas, players might say, you know what, I'm going to be able to come here and play for these teams and be in this competition. So that's going to make them even stronger and, like you say, getting some of that money back to those countries.
Does this make Rugby World Cups irrelevant? That is the question that'll be asked. When you have the best 12 nations in the world competing every 2 years, and then in a Rugby World Cup as well.
Yeah, but this is not a knockout competition. There's a different pressure when you've got to win quarter, semi and final. This is to try and generate some greater interest in and around tests against other nations where it has a meaning, it has a point, where you get to a point between World Cups where you're proving you are still the #1 team in the world, but it's not going to be definitive. A Rugby World Cup does that for me.
And it is a different beast in terms of timing, you know. It's in was it 3 separate sort of windows, whereas a World Cup, you've got, what, 7-6 weeks to find out who the best nation in the world is, you know, so that's a different sort of pressure.
Oh, I'm just looking at your earpieces popping out there, man.
Yeah, well, big ears,
getting there thinking about eating, they packing down. Hey, but another thing is too, like, teams will make adjustments from the first test window to that second one. That's what I really like as well. It's a different type of scenarios you spoke about, and then I think also, like, with those with that competition. I just think, like, you're talking about the relevance of the World Cup, that's never going to be irrelevant. I think the World Cup's always going to be the pinnacle of the competition. You have like the FA Cup in football, you know, it's a different vibe and a different setup. So,
what about the 2 extra teams that come in to join the Rugby Championship? The 2 teams that have been mooted to Japan and Fiji, are those the right teams in your eyes to come in?
It's logical right now. I mean, obviously those are the 2 highest ranked teams, but this presents the teams an opportunity when you get to that promotion relegation. I'd like to think they can get to that maybe sooner than 30, once they get their heads around it. It's a long time for teams to wait. And when you're talking like a Chile, a Uruguay, who have qualified for Rugby World Cup, the USA and Canada, I'd like to think you would get there a little bit quicker.
I don't think it's because of the Southern Hemisphere it's taking that long for the promotion relegation.
I think there's a reason it's taken this long to get here.
Yeah.
Let's be honest.
Right.
Right?
Yeah.
Oh, well, finally, let's find out then who is the best between the North and South, Jeff?
I can't wait. I can't absolutely wait. I'll tell you what I did do. I had an opportunity this morning to catch up with Michael Cheika, and I talked about clearly the All Black Test coming up, but I also talked about this new competition and got his thoughts.
Yeah, mate, I just got to make it to 2026, still going, get through 2023, see what happens, and then, you know, we'll see how it goes there. But I do think that it's a good idea. It gives a certain amount of depth to the competitions that cover both July and November, and it gives fans, I think, something to follow. Even though the Test match atmosphere is always one they want to follow, no matter what's at stake. The competition format per se, you know, gives it something a little bit different.
Well, Check, how quickly and well has your team come together, and how much are you looking forward to playing the All Blacks?
Always looking forward to playing, you know, New Zealand. The teams that are at the top of the tree in world rugby are always ones that we want to be playing against because they make us better, you know, well, by going into that atmosphere. And our preparation has been, you know, good. It's been different. We've done a lot of things remotely due to a lot of some of the restrictions that are put on us by players not being all together, coming in from Europe, and when we can actually get ourselves together. But I've been really pleased with the way things are going, and looking forward very much to getting us. We haven't really had a game week preparation as yet, so looking forward to getting to Mendoza and getting into it.
With the World Cup just around the corner, what's critical for you and your team in this year's Rugby Championship?
Well, it's really a balance of being as competitive as we can be and playing in those, you know, getting that high stakes preparation, which I think has always been good in the Southern Hemisphere. We get the Rugby Championship before the World Cup because, you know, we're still playing for something that's very important to all the teams, you know, in our supposed preparation phase. So it's a real balance between the competition side of things and getting things right around breaks and getting people peaked for the World Cup, obviously, but at the same time, being able to gauge yourself against teams that, you know, are of the highest quality, the ones you know that if you have ambitions in the World Cup, you've got to try and beat. So I like the way that our preparation lays out and our path into the World Cup, and looking forward for it to start.
A couple of weeks ago, the All Blacks named their first All Black squad for 2023. What did you make of the team?
Well, you're very fortunate, New Zealand. There's a fountain of quality players that is coming out of there. You know, there's new players every year in Super Rugby that turn up and start to challenge what is the supposed standard, the norm. You know what I mean? And now there's still, though, a core of experienced players that have been there and done that over many years and have been doing it in Super Rugby at different levels. So those players will get to mix in with the newer brigade that are coming through. And I'm sure the team will resemble something that we've seen before, but with some of that new talent coming in, so that, you know, the coaches in New Zealand can take a look at them and they can get an experience of the test arena firsthand. So, you know, our job is to bring that, you know, is to get ourselves ready and make sure that we're getting our sort of mentality and getting our players that we need to get in the right positions, the experience they need to be ready for that tournament. Like I said, while at the same time wanting to get ourselves on the board in the Rugby Championship. You know, starting off at home, that's a big opportunity for us.
Have the recent wins against the All Blacks given your team an element of confidence? How much impact has it had?
I wouldn't say an impact because we're going up against New Zealand. I'd say an impact in relation to just our self-confidence, you know what I mean, around what's, you know, some of the improvements we've been able to make over the last, you know, couple of years, and those leading to some results for us. You know, it's tricky over here because you're playing against, you know, the big three of the Southern Hemisphere every year, and sometimes the improvements that you make aren't always marked with the W at the end of the day because of where we're coming from. But you know, we had a couple of good wins last year. I don't think that, you know, every contest is a new one. So last year's games, we had the 2 in New Zealand. We only get the 1 opportunity this year, which is back here. So, you know, I think the improvement, the key for us will be the confidence that we take from those games and how that leads to us trying to be more consistent, right, at a good level across the board in this Rugby Championship.
Well, you'll be happy to know we spoke to Eddie Jones a week ago on the show. What are you expecting from Eddie and the Wallabies?
Oh, mate, I'm not really sure because I know this sounds cliche. I haven't really paid much attention, to be honest. Like, I think we've got to wait until we get ourselves over to Australia to jump into that, you know. And I'm sure, as always, it'll be fun and it'll be new for me, I suppose, being involved in the Test match in Australia. But I think all our eyes and all our concentration have been clearly focused on the Pumas, getting ourselves right, getting ourselves in the right condition to play the game this week. And then we will have had a look at Australia by then as well, you know, when they get on they play South Africa, obviously, this weekend. So we'll get a bit of a look and see and then start preparing them. But up until now, it's very much been to focus on ourselves, and now we'll start having a look at New Zealand as they head over to our shores.
Well, when you look at this year's World Cup in France, you've got England and Japan in your pool. What is it you see about this year's Rugby World Cup? Well,
I think if you're angling that, that's an opportunity because a lot of the higher seeds are on the other side of the draw, like New Zealand and etc. No, I think that's a flawed policy, mate. Because in the World Cup, if you aren't taking a look at the next team that's in front of you, then you're doing yourselves a disservice. Because every team's there to go their hardest, their best. And if you take your eye off the ball, someone will take the ball off you. And so for us, once we've prepared ourselves the way we need to and we arrive in France, you know, at the start of September, our focus will be solely on whatever game lands in front of us. And it's our human nature to want to project forward and try to predict what's going to happen and where we could land, etc. So the discipline is in making sure you don't do that, because then you get your eye off the ball, and like I said, it'll get taken off you.
Well, the Crusaders won once again in this year's Super Rugby title. Is there a world where you see the Jaguares back in Super Rugby?
Well, I'm not quite sure if Argentina Rugby ever wanted to leave it, you know what I mean? So I don't know if it was that was chosen. They chose to do that. So what I do know is there's definitely a world where there's room for a team, as another pro team. We've got the semi-pro teams playing here now in the South American Super Rugby. There's definitely room for another pro team or two coming out of Argentina that are playing in tournaments somewhere. Well, I don't know where that might be, but obviously their experience has been with Super Rugby, and it was a good experience. So whether it would take the same form as it did previously or not, I don't know. But there's definitely enough players here enough quality players, I should say, here that we're able to go and compete in or a Super Rugby or in South Africa have gone and done it in the Northern Hemisphere competitions, whatever that might be, because there's good quality players, and they've got a really good platform here for younger players to start coming through. I had a hiccup at the 20s World Cup the other day, but a lot of those players have been playing in Super Rugby South America at a competitive level, well above their age group. So things are well organised here for a pathway. You just got to keep that pathway going towards the Pumas at the end of the day.
Oh, he's an interesting character, isn't he, Michael Cheika? But he's definitely brought a difference to this Pumas side. Is this a perfect opportunity for them? The All Blacks haven't been to Argentina since 2018. They've beaten them in 2020 in Australia and last year in New Zealand. Could this be a real worry for the All Blacks this game, do you think? And it's Mendoza as well. Tougher to travel. You played your debut over there.
Yeah, I was in Buenos Aires. It's a tough place to play. They're a passionate people, just like their players. I think that back three and Levanini is massive for them. They're missing Marcos Crema, who was red-carded playing for Stade de France. But they had that historic win down at Christchurch. Yeah. The All Blacks bounced back the next week, but they've tasted it, the victory, and now they've got a chance to do it at home with their fans, the people jumping, the music going. Who knows, there might be some vuvuzelas coming back, but I think the energy over there is totally different to what we have here. And but
you were born to be Argentinian, Cars.
Low key.
We can only hope not about the vuvuzelas. That's all I can say. What I will say is this is a world-class team. Yeah. And what they did last year is they went and they beat England in England. So this is a quality side that beat the All Blacks last year. They probably didn't finish their campaign as well as they would have liked, but they tend to struggle at the end of their season because ultimately they use the same group of players, KT, but that same group of players has now tasted success against the All Blacks. You can't deny that. The experience is there, and this is critical for them in terms of starting their season. They're a really, really good team, and they're well coached, well prepared, with some experience. They're going to be a real handful. It's a challenge. It's a real test match.
Yeah, 100%. And he spoke about the obstacles, right, getting his team together, his group together. But the thing that stood out for me was the mentality. You spoke about their mentality and getting their discipline right around that space and not looking too forward ahead. And I think that's something this group, in particular, Michael Cheika has done very well. So you speak about that wins and those disciplines and that muscle memory, next time you play the All Blacks, we got them, remember? In that situation, I'll get to some depths and start digging in,
Well, you remember the Jaguares as well. They went to 2 finals of Super Rugby.
Yeah.
They got to the point at the end of their campaign in Super Rugby where they'd learnt a lot, Gus, about what it took to play against New Zealand sides. So I've learnt that, and now when they can do that, they can compete with Australia. South Africa's a different challenge for them, but every so often when they get it right, they're so difficult to play against. It's worked out perfectly for them. I miss them in regards of Super Rugby. Same. I really, really do, because they offer something different. But we saw last year in Christchurch, Gus, that they're world class. On their day, they're very, very difficult to beat.
And I think a lot of that success has come off the back of this, the Jaguares, a chance for players to consistently, get that consistent, you're playing with your mate left and right, rather than being overseas. Usually, but I suppose how can that carry on? Is it a money thing? Do we bring in a little South American team, Chile, Uruguay, maybe an all-star team? But what I do know is that I've had dealings with Cheika, and he knows how to inspire people. He knows how to bring the best out of people. He did it with the Waratahs when they won it. He did it with Australia making that World Cup final, and he's been doing it with the Argentinians.
That's just adding more passion to a group that's already passionate, right? And a fan base that is passionate. Yeah. So that's what you get. And guess what? That's when you get defence. When you get defence. And their defensive line, the 2 times that they've beaten us, we haven't been able to breach them. We haven't been able to go past them. We can't go through them because they've been at that emotional level that they just haven't missed. It's been impressive to watch. So like I say, we're going to have to be on.
I know he said that it was a flawed policy looking ahead at the Rugby World Cup draw, but Argentina, England, Japan, Samoa and Chile in the same pool, KT.
No, they can legit win that. But as a coach, you have to put a lid on it, right? And that's what he's trying to do. And good on, because he doesn't want his boys 2 steps ahead of where they're going to get. But I think we heard Fozzie say how important this championship is for the All Blacks, equally so and Michael Cheika knows that for the Pumas, right? If they are able to progress, and he said, the thing I liked about it, he said it's not always calculated in wins, you know? You want your team progressing and hitting the mark when it comes later in the year.
And for Eddie Jones, and for Australia, it's important for
We've
everyone.
We've had a very Australian show over the last fortnight,
haven't we? But it's important for them as well. I mean, the Rugby Championship is critically important. And you've got the defending World Cup champions. They're the other side, remember, in South Africa.
Well, remember the Form 15? Guess what? It's back this week, but with a completely new set of rules. Are you surprised? Jeff Wilson has got his Form 15 from the entire Super Rugby competition, and there's a reason why. We're going to compare it to potentially the All Blacks starting 15 in a week's time.
And Mills hasn't bothered to show up, so he's picked what he thinks. He's picked what he thinks is going to be Ian Foster's team for the first test next weekend. So I'm going to show you what I thought was the Form 15 coming out of the season. Now, it changed significantly over the last month. Up front, I think you can't argue with Tamaiti Williams had such an impact for the Crusaders. Cody Taylor was the big mover in the last month under pressure, and Tyrell Lomax, the work that he did for the Hurricanes. If you look at the middle row, I think you can't argue once again. Look, there's no doubt Sam Whitelock was good in the final, but Scott Barrett and Brodie Retallick were fantastic through the course of the campaign. Retallick at his very, very best. Sammy Penny-Finau, Luke Jacobson, and I found room for Billy Harmon, a good Highlander. All right, a bit on. But hey, he was clearly the best out of their team. In the last 3 weeks. It did change in the last 3 weeks. You're 100% right. I went back and looked at his form deeply because I had time to do that because the Highlanders weren't playing. But I thought he was the pick of the bunch. So very, very good. You can argue that one I'll take. Sam Cane, of course.
Sam Cane
was very, very close. All right. Cam Roigard, look, great season for the Hurricanes. Damien McKenzie, there's no doubt there the impact he had with the Chiefs and how good he was. The midfield was a little bit harder. I won't argue with this because there were a lot of guys that were injured, came in and out. David Havili was very good early on but got injured. Anton Leonard-Brown for me came back and was consistent. Probably the biggest mover out of all of it was Braden Enor. When push come to shove, when they needed to deliver for in the midfield and the big games, he did that for the Crusaders. Thought he was very, very good. And the back three, well, they picked themselves as well. Lester Whanganuku, Sean Stevenson and Amoni Narawa, all those three, well, two of them are in Argentina right now. Maybe probably one will get a start. That's how I see it. And then you've got Mills's side of things, Kirsty.
Yes, so
he's got some changes.
He has picked what he thinks is Ian Foster's strongest possible side and what we will probably see on Thursday. Remember, Will Jordan and Lester Whanganuku did not travel to Argentina, so they're out. Mark Talia is still nursing that injury. Anton Leonard-Brown is out suspended, and we're still not exactly sure on the status of Sam Whitelock as well. So when you're looking at his team, De Groot, Taylor and Lomax, Brodie Retallick, Tupou Va'i, Scott Barrett at 6, Sam Cane, Adi Savia, Aaron Smith and Richie Mo'unga is 9 and 10, Caleb Clark, Amoni Narua, Bowden Barrett as his back three. He's gone with Geordie Barrett and Rico Ioane. When you look at this team, is this, Gus, our strongest possible team with the players that are available? Is this a team we can see?
Tear it to shreds, bro. Let's tear this thing down. Let's come on.
Mills, mate, that's blasphemous. I honestly think Mills is onto something. You know, I think he's away with his kids at the moment, but he's obviously done his
harder
research.
job right now.
You know, being a Chiefs man, I could probably chuck in a few more Chiefs players, but with those players out, I think that's probably as close as it gets.
But Sam Whitelock, we were saying, is just not available for this game. They're not going to select him, give him a week off. I'm not sure. I don't know.
Well, he wasn't training fully, was he, when the All Blacks were at Mount Smart? They only had 3 days fully as a squad.
So that decision there with Tupou and with Scott Barrett going to 6, do you think that's the best option rather than having Scooter maybe starting at 6 and then a genuine 6? I think that'll be an indication of what they're thinking at 6 for the rest of the campaign.
I think initially they'll want to go with their strongest available 15, and if Scooter's going to be there at 6 moving forward, it's a no-brainer to bring a Tupou into the starting lineup at lock and let Scooter do his stuff at number 6.
I think you've got to start Scooter in the second row, don't you?
It was massive.
And like you say, you've got to have a big boy at 6, like a Sammy Penny-Finau.
Scott Barrett's a big... Have you seen Scott Barrett? He's a big boy. He's got red rolls for abs.
He's built.
Who's that, Sammy Penny?
No, Scott Barrett. But
that's what I'm saying. I want him in the middle row. I want him operating there. He was so good for the Crusaders. I think at 6. I want a Frizzell or a Finau. That's what I'm thinking.
I'm thinking that too.
So you want Scott Barrett at lock with no Sam Whitelock available?
Yeah, especially. But I want to say, you were waxing lyrical about Richie Mo'unga and you didn't even have him in your team.
What's that?
You had D-Mac at
Well, Damien McKenzie over the course. Richie Mo'unga had a big finish, no doubt about it. And he would start for the All Blacks all day for me. No problem at all. But I think there's a familiarity to what they're going to do. And they're going to look back at the last Test match of there against England. And for 65 minutes, 70 minutes, They were the best team on the park. The last 10 minutes, they just didn't get it right. I think they'll have faith in the guys. I think Caleb Clark's probably fortunate there's a couple of injuries. I think he would accept that. But I think there's a couple of players for me who'll go, you know what, I'd like to get an opportunity.
Well, potential debut as well for one of your Chiefs boys, a potential starting debut for Amoni Narua, and maybe do you see room for a couple of others on the bench? Their families might have to do the quick flight over to Argentina.
Yeah, well, usually, the team's named on the Tuesday morning at training, and with that time difference, it's almost like New Zealand's at night. So this happened to me. It was a mad rush after, because you can't call them after the meeting. You've got to go get on the field and do your training. So you're hustling flights, and there might be a couple penciled in, but they wouldn't know. But I'm hoping, there'll be a couple Chiefs boys. Sean, I thought, answered critics. He finished really strong, even after that team naming in that final. And Amoni's just been lighting the competition on fire.
Well, let's talk about the fullback then. Will they stick with the Beauden Barrett, Richie Mo'unga combination at 10 and 15? Or, KT, do you think they'll branch out and give Sean Stevenson a crack? And if not now, then when?
I think Sean will come off the bench. I think you start Bodie with his comms, I just think with such a young back three in terms of maybe Narua starting, I think you've got to go with Bodie there, and D-Mac will come on and finish it out.
So
that's my personal.
So you've got Stevenson and D-Mac on the bench. Have you got no one covering the midfield?
Yeah.
You've got no one covering the midfield. That's the challenge right now for Sean Stevenson. The fact, I think if he doesn't start, I'm not sure he plays, because it's one of those things where you need to have the right and appropriate cover, and you're doing a whole lot of reshuffling if you start picking two fullbacks in your bench, and who's going to cover centre? I don't see anyone who can do that, other than I would expect Braden Ennor probably to be on the bench for this game. Yeah. They're going to need cover in the midfield. Without Anton Leonard-Brown, without David Havili, I think that's an area of concern.
I just think a fullback like Bodie, like D-Mac might be a bit small. The Argentinians are going to come with massive bombs and heaps of pressure.
He's great in the air.
Yeah.
He's fearless as well. He'll put the body in dark places.
He spends the last 20 minutes of every game for the Chiefs at fullback.
So you want to see Damien at fullback, starting fullback?
For me, I would like to see that, given the impact he's had on this season and how he's finished games and how dangerous he can be. But if that comes off the bench, but I don't think there's room for Sean Stevenson, Beauden Barrett, Damien McKenzie and Richie Mo'unga all in the same group on the same game. I just don't think it's possible.
Well, you also wanted to see Ardie Savea kicked to the bench and Jacobson started. Is that the same on Thursday, Jim?
I was
just want to clarify.
changing his role. I'll tell you what, I was changing his role in the game. I don't underestimate what he can do at the international level. I'm just pure and simply, I would like to see size. Yeah. And you think about the bodies, and people say, well, he's as tough as it comes, there's no doubt about it, but pure size, his impact for me, sometimes it's working out where the best impact in the game can be. You win test matches in the last 30 minutes.
So you're giving these guys a crack against Argentina or South Africa, or just not at all, KT?
Oh, no, you've got to give him a crack, right? They've got a bit of opportunity. So just with Ardie, like, he's got to be in the team. So for all you Wellingtonians, just at Jeff Wilson at the breakdown.co.nz, send all your emails to him. But I get what you're saying. I get what you're saying in terms of, like you say, winning the test matches and that. But I just still think you've got to have him in there.
Well, see, it gives you actually an element of versatility off the bench as well, because he's covering both 7 and 8, and you can send him on in either position. So for me, I agree with Mills. I think they're going to start Ardie Savea at 8. Yeah. I'm just saying that I'm just looking at what we're coming up against in the balance. Look, I'm comfortable. Don't know, I'm comfortable with what he's saying there.
Yeah. OK, well, time now to talk about the All Blacks' newest jersey. It was designed by a Frenchman, Faye the Wolf. There are 15 ferns on it. We're going to zoom in because Gus didn't want to model the shirt.
It didn't come in a 3XL, so it's a bit tight.
He's just holding it up, but never has a black T-shirt, shall we say, ever been more scrutinised than this one. What are your thoughts, KT, as the fashionista around here? Are you a fan? Do you love it, or do you despise it?
I wouldn't say despise it. It's very different, but I'm just wondering why a French artiste was doing this. I know that in Japan they did the same. They had a Japanese artist.
Yeah, Yamamoto did a design.
As a guy that might have to wear it, I mean, are you a fan?
I'll be honest. The replica is a different sort of vibe to the. I'll keep that going. It's a different vibe to the proper playing jersey. It's obviously a lot more fitted. It's a different material. So, Adidas. They've nailed it. They've done it again. But I do think I do
just want some more boots.
I do think with the
someone's running a bit thin on kit. So there's the stock low at home. Is the stock low at home? Is that the issue?
Oh mate, it's a beautiful jersey. But with the replica material, it sort of can come off as just like a polo shirt. I'm a fan of the collar.
I like the collar.
Or maybe a bit of white in there, or no? You've got to go full black on a World Cup year.
Do you know what makes the jersey?
What?
It's the man inside.
Oh, the classic.
Well, let's be honest.
Do you like it then?
I like it. Yeah, I do like it. I can wear that on the golf course. It's amazing. It's got a nice collar on it, no problems at all.
Hey, it doesn't straighten your swing.
It doesn't help me hit it straighter. But no, I do like it. Look, it's one of those things. Let me put it this way. This is how you sell jerseys in France. You get a French designer to put it together. This is, look, this is a marketing ploy as much as anything as well. I'm sure the quality of it's great. It's going to look good on our team. It's, ultimately it'll come down. That won't determine whether we win or lose a test match. I can tell you that for a fact.
I
like the theory
World Cup,
behind it,
it'll
though.
be, what's that?
I like the theory behind it with the 15s ferns all connecting together and coming back to the main fern there. I like that. I'm just not sure.
Would you not wear your former playing jersey on the golf course?
No, I don't fit into my former playing jersey.
The old cotton. It's a bit wet and heavy, eh?
Right, wasn't it?
I'm assuming JK had something to do with this.
Probably.
I tell you what, JK has given me some whispers though.
Yes.
Just quickly, just so I'm expecting probably this week it'll be confirmed that Vern Cotter, the worst kept secret in coaching in New Zealand, he'll be confirmed as the Blues coach.
Nice.
I think that'll happen. He's back in New Zealand. That's what I'm pretty confident you'll hear that this week.
I like that. I like that, having an elder statesman in charge of that young group. I like that. That's a good call by the Blues.
What impact will he have? We'll wait for that news to officially be confirmed. But if it's come from JK, it's come from the Pope. So it has to be correct. Still plenty more to come on the breakdown, including catching up with JK on his tour of Europe. But first, we talk Black Ferns.
And listen to the roar as the world champions take the turf here in Redcliffe. Some good work down the front. Here's Kaluni Vale. First try to the world champs. Razzle dazzle here from the Black Ferns. Holmes backing up around the corner and now sends it wide out to Medarangi Paul. Chip ahead. Can she regather? Oh, it's a try. Quite brilliant from the Black Ferns. Breaking off the back is Mikaela Tu'u, and she's going to go all the way, as she knows. Drops it off the deck, and what a start to the second half. And that's a lovely line there from Bremner. What a try. They want 50 on the board. Here's Hove. It's Duplessis spinning out of the tackle. Duplessis just brought down, but they keep it going. What a way to finish this test match for the world champions.
Oh, how good for the Black Ferns. There were shades of Jeff Wilson, the chip and chase. Sylvia Brunt is already having comparisons to the great Ma'anonu, with some saying that she could be the best ever midfielder to play the game. But what a start, and what has been a new era for the Black Ferns. The first post-Rugby World Cup, 6 debutants and that team in a completely new coaching group, Gus.
Yeah, I mean, I think they'll be happy with that. Obviously, there's maybe some handling stuff that they'll want to figure out, but to walk away with a 50-0 win. And the last time some of these ladies have played, the Opiki final, some the week before that, I mean, to bounce back like that is not too bad. I do have to shout out, obviously, the debutantes play well, but Kate Henwood, fellow prop, was an injury replacement with the Chiefs Manawa, was an accountant. I think
such a cool story.
Got a call from Bunty to say, we want you to be fully contracted, and I think had to delay it a bit because she needed to resign from her accounting job. And there she is, debuting for the Black Ferns, representing her family on the world stage.
Don't you love the stories that this team brings? Yes, they can back it up on the field, KT, but the stories around these players, like Mirirangi Paul's another one, a netballer that's now become a sensation.
Yeah, a lot of crossover athletes, right? But you hit the nail on the head, like to sacrifice and then to give up your job and chase your black jersey. I mean, it's amazing what a feeling that would have been for her and her whānau getting on the field. But I want to go back to Bunters, it's a pretty hard thing to follow up the professor, right, and what they achieved at home in a World Cup. But with Bunting, I really love the way he allows the players to use their voices, and it's very player-led. And I think to have that many people on debut, plus the amount of time without games, and to put a performance like that is pretty awesome.
And this was without the 7 stars. So we know Portia Woodman, Stacey Flula, Sarah Hidini. The list goes on of who we saw in that team last year. Jeff, you want to move on. Give these 15s players now the opportunity to shine.
Oh, absolutely. These are the ones that have committed to this team, into the Black Ferns program. And I don't want other players coming in and out now. I look at this talent, but they played well. They got into their work. After about 20 minutes, you talked about the fact they'd made some mistakes early. I was a little bit frustrated. They were forcing some passes, a little bit inaccurate. But then you saw the gulf between these two teams and the momentum that I think they built on from last year. Some key players, but they'd taken their defence up a notch. But let's be honest, the Wallaroos were really disappointing. They were better last year. They were not good, and they were made to look. They were made to look average by, I think, a really talented and, I mean, look, Sylvia Brunt was amazing in second five, you know, and you start thinking about the future of this group. You know, I think it's incredibly bright, and I just want to see this group go to work, you know, and here's the thing. If you let someone else take your jersey, there's no automatic. If you think you want to come back into the squad, you know, if they're the ones that are out there doing it and you're growing for the future and bringing talent through, they need to play. And when you're only playing possibly 8 test matches, you want to give them as many opportunities as you can.
Yeah, you know, I helped, not to say I had nothing to do with it, but had a little bit to do with Sylvia early on at Mount Grammar, you know, and she's always been a very humble young lady, super intelligent too, but she's still got a lot to learn, you know, like you can see defensively she was very strong and did a lot of good work. Once she starts figuring out how to distribute a lot more, she's going to be even a bigger weapon, man. So yeah, only 19, remember, so
yeah, unbelievable.
Young in her apprenticeship.
There's always been a lot of chatter about the Women's High Performance Program in New Zealand, whether or not we're doing enough, whether we're doing the right things, but the gulf between New Zealand and Australia shows right now we are. The Wallaroos have never, ever beaten the Black Ferns, and we know how unhealthy it is in the Bledisloe Cup. If you look at the men's game, we need these two teams to both be strong, right? They're our neighbours. Yeah, they are, but ultimately, how much is that on Australian rugby and how much is that on us? And where do we get that expansion in the game to try and develop that? You know, I think at the moment, I mean, they lost some players, the Wallaroos did, but ultimately, I mean, just the speed and athleticism of the players and building on some of the great work that was done last year. And when we started going through the middle of the park, all of a sudden it created spaces on the outside, and then we had debutants on the edges who were good enough to not just to score tries, but to do it with a spectacular fashion, which is fantastic. Yeah, and it's important we do create those pathways, because you think that the Six Nations, so, you know, a few years ago, went through COVID, the girls didn't get as many tests, and it showed when they went up north for that tour. They came back, won the World Cup last year, but these nations up north, they're getting consistently good competition in that Six Nations, you know, and we talk about Australia needs to come up, they've got Canada tests coming up as well, so I suppose how do we get those pathways better to keep us at that level, so when we play the Englands, when we play the Frances, it's not like oh my gosh, I'm shocked by this level, we're leading straight into it. Yeah, and I think things in terms of Australia, they put a lot of money into their sevens programs, and they've got a lot of athletes, you know, so they should be putting those ones into that 15er side. I don't know why they're not, you know, like, because that obviously won Olympic golds and whatnot. You look at their NRL stars and the Seven Stars, incredible athlete. It's not that they don't have the firepower there, right? But they're just not competing in 15s. Yeah, and I think also like the Fijian teams coming up now, you know, we need to start giving them games as well against the Black Ferns that exposes them. Samoa, another one obviously that can get up there. Papua New Guinea's actually really good as well, their women's side. So, you know, I think we need a competition, as you said, like the Six Nations, just to get test matches, right? Yeah, well, the Black Ferns have an exciting fortnight ahead. I was very lucky to sit down with our Black Ferns blindside flanker, Alana Bremner, before she took off to Canada. And I asked her just what it was like being back out there in the Black Ferns jersey after the Rugby World Cup.
Yeah, it was awesome. Super special. I think you could tell from the girls we were probably a little bit excited and nerves in that first half with the few balls going to ground, but pretty cool experience to play over there. We had an awesome turnout. I think it was a record-breaking crowd for Australia. Standalone women's game, which was pretty cool. And then obviously 6 debutantes, which are the games, you know, you just want to make sure they all get on. They had some awesome minutes and, yeah, pretty special for those girls.
Just on that, Alana, how impressive were the new women wearing the black jersey for the first time?
Unreal. I think, you know, they had performances they should all be really proud of. It's pretty cool when you see girls that are, I guess, new on the team being able to go out there and play with lots of courage. And I think that's a testament to the culture and environment that's created within this group with the new management. And then the girls just making them feel at ease. And yeah, they really stepped up on Saturday. So it was cool to see.
You haven't played a test match since late last year. It's been a couple of months since Super Rugby Opiki has finished, and there didn't seem to be that much rust. How much rugby had you all had coming into this test?
Yeah, a little bit of rust, I think. There's definitely things to get better at, especially on attack, but I'm pretty proud of the defence effort that we had, you know, going up and putting pressure on, and we've kind of have an attacking mindset around our defence, and I think defence coach was pretty proud of that one. And then attack, obviously, haven't had too much time together, getting some combinations sorted, so that stuff will tidy up, and with more time together, I'm sure will come right. How many rugby games? Not a whole lot. I think my last one, it was a club game over a month ago, maybe 2 months ago. So girls have been playing in the club comp, which has been pretty cool to be able to do that. But yeah, not a lot of games since Super Rugby Opaki finished.
That's super impressive, going straight out of club rugby into the international setup and ticking boxes for your new coaches as well. What has the new environment been like with so many changes?
Yeah, it's been unreal. You know, what Smithy and the group last year created was really cool, and we've tried to keep a lot of that in and just build on that. But obviously new coaches bringing new ideas and a new fresh environment for the year. They've been bringing really innovative ideas, and it's really cool to see. You know, last year we thought it was pretty perfect, the environment, but then you just get a bit of change and you adapt and have a lot of fun along the way. So yeah, they've fitted in really well, and it's been an awesome group.
Can you give us any more insights into what those little changes are?
Well, we still want to play that really exciting attacking game. You know, that's the game we were bred to play, and Bunce is all about that, bringing that through. And then I guess on defence, it is that really attacking, which you saw the other night with some of our line speed and some of the big hits the girls have put on. We've done a lot of work in the dojo, so it's pretty cool to see that stuff we've been training come out on the field.
Your current Rugby World Cup champions, but the year after is usually a rebuilding phase. So what's the focus? What are the goals for the team in 2023?
Well, this game, the Australia game, we just really wanted to focus on us, so we hadn't looked too much into it. Obviously being a new year and a new team, and there was a lot we wanted to tick off. So I guess just keep playing that exciting brand of rugby that, you know, the public and we love to play. It excites us, and I think it excites people that are watching it. Build some more depth within the group, within the players in New Zealand. That's a really important piece. And yeah, just have a lot of fun. You know, Bunce is always just telling us to enjoy it, and that's when we play our best. So there's a lot of enjoyment in the group at the moment.
You've got an exciting couple of weeks coming up where the Pac 4 series continues in Canada. Talk us through the logistics of actually getting your team over there, because you're not going to the easiest place in the world, Ottawa in Canada. How do you actually get there?
No, yeah, it's a bit crazy. So I'm currently at the airport in Auckland. I'm flight 2 of 3. So I think flight 1 has just landed in Ottawa after maybe 26 hours of travel. Yeah, we're about to fly to Vancouver and then got an 8-hour stop over there, then a 5-hour flight to Ottawa. And then I might be in a few days' time that the whole team's actually together training on field as we ease into it, get over the jet lag. But yeah, everyone's pretty excited.
It's been a seriously disrupted 4 years for international rugby. It must be so cool to actually be able to go overseas on these tours again.
Yeah, it has been a while, and the last tour obviously looked quite different, being COVID restrictions. So I'm looking forward to this and being able to check out some of Canada and see what it's like over there. A bit more freedom, and there's some friends and family travelling over as well. So it will be pretty cool to see some Kiwi supporters in the crowd.
You've got a couple of matches against Canada and the USA. Canada third at the Rugby World Cup, so they'll probably be a little bit of a sterner test rather than those Aussies. What are you expecting?
Yeah, well, that's my job on the plane. I'm going to tick off watching some of their clips. But yeah, Canada had a big win over USA the weekend just gone. So yeah, we know what they're like. They're a fit team, and the more time they spend together, the better they gel, and you saw it through World Cups. So yeah, really excited for the game coming up, and I think it's going to be a good one.
The coolest thing about the Pacific 4 series is it gives you an opportunity to qualify for the WXV. For the first time ever, we'll be hosting it here in New Zealand later on in the year. So what's it actually like having a proper global calendar for the women's game?
It's really exciting. You know, the more tests, the more exposure, the more we get to play is better. And pretty cool hearing that it's going to be in our backyard at the end of the year. And you know, just to flow on from the World Cup, the exposure and everything we had, the amount of people that turned up to support, hoping to, you know, carry that on. But yeah, I guess home games are always special and something to look forward to. So we'll be doing our very best to hopefully qualify for that at the end of the year.
Now, I'm just trying to work it out. You've got a 26-hour flight. You're a Bremner. Does this mean when your passports are together, you're sitting next to your sister Bremner as well?
We've actually been separated, so it's a little bit strange not having Charles beside me. But yeah, no, we've separated. It might be a good thing anyway.
Do you know who you're next to?
No, not quite sure yet, but it's pretty cool. We're quite lucky, and we get to fly business, so get a little bit of space on that first flight anyway.
Thank you so much for your time, Alana, and all the very best over in Canada.
Awesome. Sounds good. Thank you so much for your guys' support.
Oh, we love it. We love the Black Ferns, don't we? Alana Bremner. They will be in action against Canada in their first test match, 10:30 a.m. next Sunday morning, directly after the All Blacks. So you'll have back-to-back matches to watch over your pancakes, your bacon and your eggs. Now, do you reckon JK's missed us? Probably not. But you know what? He sat down with a couple of his great mates. That's coming up right after this.
Now I've got Kieran Crowley, my old mate, back three, and he's living in my house. I actually call him my gardener, but he's actually the coach of the Italian national team. You're in the France, New Zealand pool. How do you prepare for that, mate?
We've got Namibia and Uruguay first two games. There is a thing around it, you know, if you're one of the sort of lesser unions or lesser countries, you know, if you can finish third in your pool, you get automatically qualified for the next World Cup. So, you know, that's a little step along the way.
Well, Colton, good luck, mate. I hope you beat Uruguay and Namibia and France.
Yeah, thanks,
and the
mate.
other one you can lose.
Cheers, mate. We'll be trying on all four.
I know you will. Such a big pleasure for me to be here with my captain, Sean Fitzpatrick. 90 years old. Yeah, yes, mate. We're in Hyde Park. I can't believe my life sometimes, you know. What's your pick for World Cup?
Well, you mentioned France and Ireland, probably the two best teams in the world. They are the two best teams in the world at the moment. I think the top 14 in France is probably the best rugby competition in the world at the moment, just purely the week in, week out. They're still playing now. And
better than Super Rugby?
I think at the moment, yeah. I think the quality of players. I think they're bigger, they're fitter, they're faster, they're stronger, which then carries on into the international game. And, you know, France is going to be very difficult to beat at the World Cup at home. But I actually think we're in a really good pool. Having France in our pool, we've got obviously a very difficult game one. And then we've got 3 or 4 weeks before we know who we're going to be playing. It's either going to be Ireland, South Africa or Scotland. And they're in a really difficult pool.
So you think that hard pool might just work in our favour if we can get a bit of a rest? We've got.
Well, actually, that pool, the pool that we're going to play in quarterfinals, is they're going to get beaten up. So Ireland's going to be beaten up. You know, South Africa will probably be the one that I wouldn't want to play. I'd probably rather play Ireland.
Breakdown on Monday morning. I hope you're not cutting me out of that cut down version, Goldie. But
the numbers must have dropped, have they? Since you have been in terms of the viewing numbers.
Yeah, they've gone up. But great to see you, my old mate, and we'll go and have a coffee and see you all next week.
Charles, not bad camera work for Sir John Kerwin, doing it on his mobile phone from Hyde Park as well. Must be tough at the moment. But one thing that stood out there, Sean Fitzpatrick says the top 14, best international rugby competition in the world right now. It speaks volumes of the teams over there, right? And the world rankings, France and Ireland 1 and 2.
Yeah.
Oh. Well, yeah, Tyler Ardron played for the Chiefs. He's over at Cast at the moment. He came back to catch up with a few of us, and he said it's bonkers at the moment, like 60,000 people sold out. You've seen La Rochelle win it. A guy I played with, Will Skelton, on his videos, flares. It's just a different buzz at the moment. And, you know, whether that's off the back of them doing really well internationally, they've got the World Cup coming up, but seems like a pretty good place to be playing.
And when you look at the under-20 competition, which has been happening in South Africa, it's backing this up, isn't it? France beat New Zealand, and France are the current defending champions. Italy beat South Africa, and Ireland beat Australia. So those nations are winning, even at a junior level.
Yeah, I think this isn't by fluke why it's happening now. I think a long time ago they knew they couldn't compete with athletes with the Southern Hemisphere, so they put a lot into their skills and the coaches with their skills in the Northern Hemisphere, and I think it's coming to fruition now with these younger players.
Do you know what happened? All of our best coaches went overseas, and not just coaching at the top level, all the IP starts to go down. So you're talking in France, you're talking in the UK, you're talking about in Japan. It's all gone overseas, and that information and that sharing about how we've played the game, approached the game, you add it to what they know and the athletes they have, and the product of being in an under-26 nations environment every year, and it's been going for a long time now. They've just got consistency of form and players, and they're seeing players that are further developed on for me, Gus, particularly in numbers 1 through 5.
Oh, massive.
And they're massive men.
They're huge.
I mean, to the point where the French, they couldn't even lift his lock. The guy was that big.
He was 149 kg,
exactly.
and he's 18.
Yeah, and we don't have that. That's not a natural thing for us to have, is it?
But it's not only the size. You talk about the coaching. You know, back in the day, it was always they'll scrum, they'll maul, but they can't ball play. And you're seeing that, you know, the guy you're talking about is a Tuilangi, right? Yeah. You know, so he's got the genes, they're coaching it. But here's a little bit of a left field thing. I'm thinking sort of outside the box now. Is for us in this little country of 5 million people, are we now seeing the effect of other options? So league is massive. Jake, you know, Goldie, your boys are playing basketball.
Basketball's absolutely massive.
People are looking at gaming, or maybe let's just not even play sport. Is that in a nation where rugby's always been number one, and other countries, football's dominated, rugby's on the growth? Is that maybe something that's affecting the results? You know, it's a question to ponder on.
Oh, I think it totally is. Like, you look at the participation numbers at school, it's either football or basketball, at 1 and 2 at high school. You know, and if you're not in these academies, then, you know, a lot of these kids are going to go do other stuff.
Well, here it is, the first weekend of Test matches. All Blacks taking on Argentina, South Africa against Australia. Can you see an upset in either of those games, team?
All Blacks.
Up the ABs.
There's no upsets. This is Test match rugby. It's game on. We're here at 6:30, by the way. 6:30 a.m. We'll be here. Join us.
Good night. Ka kite anō.
Tēnā koutou katoa, no mai, haere mai, buenas noches. Ioane looking for gap. Johnny Barrett is away, gets the pass off, and Payton claps in. And Argentina, and here's a try. Oh boy, Gonzalez. Argentina win for the first time in New Zealand. Wow, what a win.
The All Blacks are in must-win territory.